Okay. If you didn't see the email, we're going to be doing almost all of the class at a wall tonight. So if you have a wall somewhere nearby you that you can use, and if you need to like duck off camera to be up against the wall, absolutely no problem. I won't be offended if you disappear off camera or turn your camera off. No problem whatsoever. Other than that, so you need a wall and then maybe something to lay on, depending on what floor you're on. You can have your mat up against the wall and lay this way, or you can have a blanket, whatever to be comfy. And then a strap. If you don't have a strap, it's not absolutely necessary, but if you have something like a belt or a tie or a blanket that you can kind of do like a Rapunzel thing breaking out of the turret, that would be good. And that's it really. I just have this stuff around because it's hiding the outlets, but you don't need it. Awesome. All right, guys, let's get started. So we're actually going to start at the wall laying down, and I'll talk to you about what we're going to do once we're in position. So we're going to start with a butterfly pose at the wall. And the best way to get into it, there's no real graceful way to get into any of these poses tonight, is to come and sit sideways to the wall, as close to the wall as you can get, and then turn around so that you can put your legs up the wall and your bum touching the base of the wall. And once you're up there, bring your legs into the butterfly. So bring the feet together, knees out to the side. And if you find that your bum's too close to the wall, you can wiggle away a little bit, or you can wiggle close to the wall. And then you choose where you'd like your arms, either out to the side in a T shape, or maybe one hand heart, one hand belly, or even overhead. I'm going to be here for a few minutes, settling in and setting our intention for the class. And you figure out what's going to be comfy for you for the next few moments. So we're going to be, like I said, doing most of our class at the wall today. And for as much as you can, I'd like you to kind of keep your eyes closed, really turning the attention inwards. But you'll notice pretty much our upper body, everything from hips upwards, is essentially in Shavasana. So we're going to be spending a lot of the class with half our body in Shavasana. And you may have seen these funny memes online, and there's one that says something like, every time you skip Shavasana, a unicorn dies. Or there's one that says, I'm only here for the Shavasana. And we never know, we don't know if unicorns die whenever you choose to skip a Shavasana, but we do know that Shavasana is the true peak pose in any yoga class. And it's one of those that I always recommend my students do not skip. If you're going to skip anything, do not skip that Shavasana. And Shavasana as an asana, I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. It's actually made its appearance in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is one of the ancient texts on yoga. It's from the 15th century, and it shows up in almost every single yoga sequence to this day. And Shavasana translates to corpse pose. And I bet you could count on one hand, maybe even on one finger, the amount of times you've been cued in a class to take corpse pose. Almost all teachers use Shavasana, the Sanskrit word for this pose. And it's because in the West, we tend to have this sort of standoffish relationship with anything related to death. We don't often talk about death. And so we don't really want to tell our students to, hey, come lay down and take death pose for the next 6 minutes. But the whole meaning behind Shavasana, and what I want to explore in our class today, with us having the upper body in Shavasana for most of the class, is the idea of death and rebirth. And by death, it's not a bad thing. It's not the be all and end all. Death of something means the opportunity for rebirth. It gives us the opportunity to grow into something else, to blossom all over again. And so when we separate Shavasana from this idea of death, destruction, and then ultimate rebirth, we're actually losing a lot of the meaning behind this very important pose. So Shavasana is the death of the ego. It's the death of craving and grasping anything that we mistakenly think brings us happiness, and death of aversions to anything that we think is causing us unhappiness. And so in Shavasana, what we ultimately are doing is practicing the recognition that everything is exactly as it needs to be. There's nothing left to do, there's nowhere to go, nothing that we should be doing other than relishing that moment of death of things that no longer serve us and rebirth into something else. So we're going to be exploring this significance as we move through our poses together today. And hopefully towards the end of the class, you may see why Shavasana is seen to be one of the most important poses that we can take within a class. And if there's one yoga pose you're going to do every single day for the rest of your life, I hope it might be Shavasana. So we're going to be here for a few more breaths in this first opening pose together. And if at any time during the class with us sat at the wall for quite a period of time, if it gets uncomfortable, just swing your legs down and give everything a little bit of a shake, a little bit of a tap, and then come on back to the wall. And same with the arms. If you decide that your arms aren't comfortable in a certain position, please feel free to move them. So there's actually been quite a lot of peer-reviewed scientific studies. Some of you know I'm a scientist, so I enjoy when the more esoteric side of yoga is backed up by scientific findings. And there's been a lot of studies showing that regular practice of a Shavasana-like posture decreases people's resting heart rate and actually leads to the parasympathetic nervous system dominating. The parasympathetic nervous system is the rest, digest, that kind of chill out nervous system, as opposed to the fight or flight sympathetic nervous system, which is where we are most of the time. So that shows us that people who practice Shavasana are actually less likely to reach peak levels of stress, even off of the yoga mat. The benefits that we get from practicing Shavasana in our yoga class doesn't stop the minute we walk out of the door of the studio. They continue onwards. So it's a beautiful, beautiful and powerful pose for us to take and have in our little repertoire of poses. I'm going to be here for about another minute in this pose. If it feels good to you, you may want to take your hands and just put them gently on the inside of your knees, just pushing the knees sort of away from you a little bit. Very gentle pressure, not forcing anything. If you do it and it doesn't feel good for you, just let it go again. Just allowing the hips to open up a little more. And then you can release that gentle pressure on the knees. Then bring both knees in towards the chest and just give yourself a little hug. So just rocking a little from side to side, seeing how you feel after that first pose. And as I mentioned, if you feel like you need to come down from the wall before you progress, then please do. Otherwise, stay where you are. And I should have mentioned earlier to have the strap to hand. So if you can grab the strap. That was my bad. I apologize for not telling you to have it at the wall, guys. And then come back into position. So a little teddy bear hug at the wall. And then take both legs straight up the wall. So it's sort of like a staff pose, Dandasana at the wall. And bend the right leg, grab that strap and put the strap over the top of the right foot. Essentially the bottom of the right foot, but it's facing upwards, so it's the top of the right foot now. You need to make a loop in the strap, or you can just hold both ends of the strap, whatever works for you. Keep the left foot on the wall, the left leg on the wall. Gently bring the right foot towards your face. So very, very gentle. We don't need to overstretch here or go crazy. And for as much as you can, keep the arms relaxed. So the arms have a hold of the strap and they're keeping tension in the strap, but they're not kind of tugging and pulling that strap down. So if that means you have the space in your strap to bring the elbows to the floor, the upper arms to the floor, and just hold on to it, then do that. And we're going to be taking the leg into a few different positions. But just for now, breathe here, breathe back into the back of that leg. And if it serves you, you can have either one hand holding the strap, both hands holding the strap, whatever's best. So if you've been to lots of other yoga classes, you may have heard talk of Shiva. And Shiva is the god of destruction. Again, it's not destruction in a bad way, because we need to knock things down, move them out of the way to make place for new things. Shiva is one of the three sort of upper ranking Hindu gods, one of the Trimurti, along with Vishnu and Brahma. And together they represent death, rebirth, and then continuation. And death, that destruction, what we see in Shavasana, it's necessary for rebirth, it's necessary for growth, it's necessary for change. If nothing ever got destroyed, we'd never have the possibility for something new to be born. And so Shiva essentially represents what we go through in Shavasana. And keeping hold of that strap, gently let the right foot fall over slightly towards the left. It's probably not going to move very far. Yes, you're sort of crossing the leg over a little bit. That's it. You might feel this in the IT band on the outside of that right thigh. You might feel it in the bum. And then again, keeping hold of the strap, go ahead and take that right foot all the way out to the right. So you're coming into a half dragonfly, half wide-legged pose. Keep the left foot pointing up towards the ceiling, right foot out to the right. And only go as far as is comfortable for you. Once you start to feel resistance, once you start to feel something stopping you, whatever that may be, then that's the place that you get to hang out at. So in terms of being on the yoga mat, Shavasana marks the death of whoever we were when we first walked into that class. And the person that is changes every single day. We'll never be the same person when we walk into every single yoga class. And in the space of those 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 minutes that you spend in Shavasana, we have the opportunity to transform and to be reborn. So whatever it is that we're reborn into when we come out of Shavasana and when we head back into the world off of our mats, that is entirely up to us. And start bringing that right leg up again to meet the left. And we're going to switch sides, but if it serves you to let go of the strap for a minute and bring the knees into the chest, take a little teddy bear hug again and rock maybe from side to side, and that is cool. And once you feel ready, this time the strap goes over the sole of the left foot. Both feet straight up towards the ceiling, leaning up the wall or the door. And we begin by bringing that left foot in towards the face. So it doesn't have to move very far, just a few inches off the wall. And again, how relaxed can you make your arms? So the arms are simply providing a little bit of tension to that strap. They're not yanking it down. And be very gentle and mindful with our postures. And keeping that left foot pulled in a little bit away from the wall. Take the left foot over to the right. So again, just gently crossing it slightly in front of the other leg. That's it. Taking it into the outside of that left thigh, the outside of the left hip and the left bum. So whilst your legs are doing most of the work today, most of the work we're going to be doing is hips and legs. How relaxed can your upper body be? How much Shavasana-esqueness, and that's a word, can you have in your upper body? How much possibility can you give yourself for rebirth, for growth in the upper body? And then take that left foot all the way out to the left. So coming into a half wide-legged position. Keep the right one pointing up towards the ceiling. And let the left go as far as it's comfortable or until you run into something, which seems to normally be the case. And here, can you close your eyes? Can you let your upper body go through a mini cycle of rest, distraction, and rebirth, giving your nervous system a little bit of time to relax. And some of the older texts of yoga, the seat of meditation was actually Shavasana for some teachers. And if you go to classes such as Yoga Nidra, which is essentially yogic sleep, that is done in a Shavasana position. There's still a lot of people that teach meditation laying down, because for a lot of people, that is the best way to switch on the parasympathetic nervous system. It's by being horizontal. We normally set up for meditation because it allows us to stay alert and stay awake in the physical body. We risk falling asleep when we lay down in Shavasana, which is totally normal. You can bring both legs back up towards the ceiling, and you can let go of the strap and put it off to one side. And we're going to make our way into a wall variation of Malasana, or squat pose. So start bending the knees and then take the feet as wide as is comfortable for your hips. And the knees will bend, the knees will come in slightly towards the chest. And then you can kind of wiggle the feet out a little bit, find what's comfortable until you get a sensation in the inner groin. No pain, nothing sharp, nothing owie, just a sensation, sort of a gentle tug in the inner groin. And then yogi's choice once again with the arms and the hands. Figure out what works for you, what's going to allow you to be still for a few minutes. We've got a few more deep breaths here. And breathe into the inner groins, the inner hips. And start walking the feet in towards each other, gently bringing the knees together again. And before we move to our next pose, maybe bring the knees into the chest, little hug, little roll around, any movement you need to take, any rebirth that you need to allow the body to have. We're going to make our way into full dragonfly at the wall. So that's full wide-legged pose at the wall. So take both feet straight up to begin with, legs pointing straight up, and then take both legs out to the side. So legs wide. And again, come to the place where you feel resistance or the place that you run into furniture, depending on your situation. And if possible, here, take your arms out to the side, take up space. Really allow yourself to relax into this pose as much as you can. And can you close your eyes here and find a somewhat strange but mini Shavasana? What is there in your life that no longer serves you, that you could leave on the mat when you walk away from your practice today? So what could be the one thing? It could be a person, a relationship, a situation, a simple chore. What could be the thing that you choose gets to die on the mat today at the end of your practice? And how would it feel to walk away from the mat reborn and rejuvenated without the weight of that thing carrying you down? We've got about another minute here. You can slowly start bringing the legs together again. We're going to stay at the wall where possible, but you may want to scoot a few more inches away from it so that you can bend your knees and have your shins roughly at a 90-degree angle. So the soles of the feet will be flat on the wall and then the knees pointing up towards the ceiling. We're going to make our way into figure 4. So you'll find out if you're close enough to the wall, too far away from the wall as we go. So keep the left foot planted on the wall and cross the right ankle over the left knee. So here you may find that you have to scoot away from the wall a little bit to give yourself enough space. And take the left arm out to the side, mini Shavasana arm, and either right arm out to the side as well if you already feel sensation in the hips. If you're not really feeling anything in the hips or in the buttock on that outer right hip, you can gently take the right hand, very, very gently push that right knee away from you. So you're pushing the right knee towards the wall. Keep the right ankle flexed, the right foot flexed. So we're just protecting the ankle joint. So you may feel sensation in the outside of that right thigh, the right butt cheek, maybe in the groin. So the reason Shavasana is such an important pose is because we essentially take away the distraction of the physical body. We get into a position where we can be fully relaxed, or we hope that we can be fully relaxed, and that takes away the focus from the physical body, and we're able to go a little bit deeper into the mind and a little bit deeper into stillness. And if we learn to stay still, we can become much more acquainted with our true self and with our deeper mind. Get rid of the ego. In Shavasana, we're much more than just our physical selves. We're much more than what we normally believe is the entirety of us. A few more deep breaths here. Any breathing into that right hip, especially if you have the right hand, applying some gentle pressure to the right knee. And left leg is going to stay exactly where it is with the foot planted on the wall. And on the right leg, we're going to move into half happy baby. So you can grab the inside of that right foot, the outside of the right foot, the big toe. You can have a strap around the foot and choose to hold on to the strap, whatever works for you. Start gently bringing that right knee in somewhere towards the chest. It doesn't have to come anywhere near the chest, but we're just heading in that direction. And for the first few breaths, just let it wiggle around a little bit. So you can rock a little from side to side. You can move that femur in the hip socket on the right side. Just figuring out how things feel today. A little bit of dynamic movement. And then start to come back to stillness. So half happy baby on the right side. And if keeping the left foot planted on the wall doesn't work for you, you can let the left knee wing out to the side so that you're in sort of a half butterfly on the left side, half happy baby on the right. And then again, can you find stillness in the upper body? Can you find your half Shavasana from the hips upward? Apart from the right arm, of course. Maybe for the last few breaths in the pose, you might want to explore straightening that right leg or working in the direction of that right leg being straight. It doesn't have to get anywhere near it. Just exploring a different motion within the hip joint. And it might feel nice to bend and straighten that right leg. And you can bring both knees into the chest once again. Little mini hug for yourself. Little rock from side to side for the spine, for the hips. And we'll take everything onto the other side. So bend both knees again, both soles of the feet onto the wall, somewhere around a 90-degree bend in the knee. And this time, left ankle crosses over right knee, keeping that left ankle, the left foot flexed to protect the joint. And then your option, hands out to the sides, maybe left hand gently pushing on the left knee, pushing the knee towards the wall, so pushing it away from you. And once again, coming back to stillness in the upper body, coming back to our mini Shavasana, our mini corpse pose. And discovering anything else within ourselves or around ourselves that we might benefit from leaving behind us when we walk away from our practice. And leaving those things behind doesn't have to be negative. It can be liberating. It makes space for new things to come into the room that they leave behind. Change can be daunting, it can be scary, but it can also be very exciting to see what blossoms in the room that we've created when we let these things go, when we let them die. A few more breaths on this side. Breathing into that left hip. And from here, once again, making our way into a half happy baby on the left leg this time. So you can keep the right leg where it is, and then either grab outside, inside, or big toe of that left foot, or even a strap around the foot is great too. And then start working the knees somewhere in the direction of coming down towards the chest and the sole of the foot pointing up towards the ceiling. If it's not working for you to have that right foot on the wall, you can come into sort of a half butterfly with that right leg. And again, first few breaths, just rocking a little from side to side, exploring how that hip feels. A lot of our hip muscles, especially the psoas, is related to, well, the psoas is directly linked to the diaphragm anatomically. They have fibers that interweave with each other. And so it's a link to how we breathe. So if we're in a stress state, then our psoas tends to be quite tight. So if you're feeling a lot of sensations there, it could be related to being a little bit under tension or a little bit stressed. So just sending all of your breath to that area of the body. And then finding a little bit of stillness. So how relaxed can you make the rest of the body that isn't in the pose? How much of a Shavasana can you take with everything that isn't in the happy baby pose? A couple more breaths here. Maybe straightening that leg for the last few moments. And maybe doing the bend and straighten. Just noticing how things feel. And then once again, bringing both knees into the chest. A little hug, a little rock from side to side. And from this position, we're going to make our way into a reclined twist. So if you're far enough away from the wall and you feel like you can drop both knees over to the left, then you can go ahead and do that. So stay on your back and just allow both knees to pull over to the left. Arms out to the side, shoulder height. If you feel like you're a bit too close to the wall, just push yourself away a few inches. And if this version of a twist doesn't work for you, please take any other variation that does. Legs can be straight, legs can be staggered, legs can be wrapped around each other in eagle, whatever works for you. And maybe with knees dropping to the left, your gaze can fall to the right. And here, notice any sensations in the legs and the hips. We had the legs inverted for quite a while today in class, and that's not a position we're normally in, unless you're maybe Cirque du Soleil or a professional handstander. You don't tend to hang out upside down for 45 minutes in a row. So just notice how things feel as normal circulation returns to the lower half of the body. Notice how rebirth of the legs and the hips and the feet and the ankles feel. And start to bring the knees back up to center. We're just going to go straight over to the other side. If you need a breath at the top, then that's absolutely okay. Otherwise, knees fall now to the right, gaze falls maybe to the left. And you take your version of the twist. And noticing like how things feel on this side of the body. We tend not to be equal in terms of our hip muscles, in terms of how tight they are or how loose they are. And so for a lot of us, we have one hip that's really tight compared to the other one. So just noticing without any judgment how things feel when we do these asymmetrical poses. In our yin poses, we get to almost do little mini shavasanas. Each of our poses gets to be its own little cycle of death and rebirth. So we get to leave a lot of things that no longer serve us behind in each of the poses and come out of each pose renewed, maybe reborn. A few more breaths on this side. And start bringing the knees back up to center. Bring the knees into the chest for one last hug. And for Shavasana, I've said it so many times I can't pronounce it anymore. For Shavasana today, I'd like to give you two options. You can either stay at the wall and take Viparita Karani, which is legs up the wall, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, or you can choose to come away from the wall and take a regular Shavasana on your mat. So if you'd like to take Viparita Karani at the wall, I suggest grabbing a strap, taking it with you. Turn so that both legs go up the wall, and the strap is going to go around either your shins or around the thighs. You'll figure out what's most comfortable for you. Legs point straight up towards the ceiling, and then the upper part of the body is in your regular Shavasana. So this is Viparita Karani. Or you can choose to come down, move away from the wall, and take your regular Shavasana. So as we settle in, allow the breath to slow down a little bit. Allow the eyes to close. Any last minute wriggles or fidgets that you need to get out of the way. And just do a quick body scan. So starting at the top of the head. You're holding tension in the face, so you're furrowing the brow, clenching the jaw. Can you let the lips part slightly? Let the tongue be soft in the mouth. Moving the awareness down through the chest and the arms, you clenching the fingers into fists. Can you let the shoulder blades sink down into the mat? Can you let your entire back body, your hips, your pelvis be heavy on the mat? And no matter which variation of the pose you're in, can you let your feet be relaxed? A lot of us tend to unconsciously tense the thigh muscles, the hamstrings, the quads, the back of the legs. Can you let all of that relax? And can you settle into your moment of death and rebirth? You settle into the moment of transformation from whoever you were when you first walked into class today. Because what you'll be reborn as when you awaken and head back out into the world is entirely up to you. And slowly begin to deepen the breath, allowing those inhales and exhales to get a little longer. And before you move, come back to whatever that thing was that you wanted to leave on the mat today. What was the thing that no longer serves you that you can leave behind? Because this right here, the moment of exiting Shavasana, is that moment where we move from death to rebirth. We have, in the space of this moment, the opportunity to transform. So set an intention to leave whatever that thing was behind on the mat. And you move away from the practice in a few moments. So as you feel ready, you can lower the legs if they've been up the wall and remove the strap. And start bringing micro movements back, circling wrists and ankles. And bringing the knees into the chest. Give yourself a hug. And then roll over to one side and just pause there. A little fetal position of newborn babies. Taking that time to linger in the transformational moment of rebirth. And then gently making your way up to sit. Any seated position of your choice and move slowly. We were inverted for quite some time. So be very gentle with yourselves, with your hips, your legs especially. Once you've found your comfy position, allow the eyes to close once again. Hands can rest wherever is comfortable. And then just notice any changes, any shifts, any signs of transformation that may have appeared during your time in our mini Shavasanas. And then bring the hands together in prayer at the chest and take the knuckles of the thumbs to the third eye, the center of the forehead. So know that with each Shavasana, what you're reborn into when you awaken, when you leave the mat, when you leave the practice, it's entirely up to you. It is your opportunity for transformation and rebirth. So with grace and gratitude that the light in me honors and bows to the light within each and every one of you. Hari Om Tat Sat. Namaste. Thank you, beautiful people. I wish you a wonderful rest of your evening, the rest of the day, depending what time zone you're in. And I will see you all either on Saturday or next week. Have a wonderful week, guys.